To the messengers. And as always, we will start by hailing to our patron planet, Mercury, Great Buddha, tethered. And we say, peace be upon you, O Mercury, the swift messenger, the quick, the bright-minded, the eloquent, the key of tongues and the keeper of letters, the thought in motion, the clever, the gracious, the curious, full of wit, the teacher, the merchant of meaning, the patron of scribes, the friend of travelers, the carrier of the word between worlds, the agile, the dexterous, the speaker of many languages, the weaver of bridges, the great. You're the connection between mind and mind. You are the messenger of the heavens and the patron of those who seek understanding, the lamp of honest inquiry. And I also ask you in your holy names of the Most High. I call you in your names in Arabic, Utard, in Persian, Tyr, in Greek, Hermes, in Roman, Mercurius, and in Indian, Buddha. Let your clear light fall upon our mind and tongues. Reveal your sphere within and without, that our words may be true and kind, that our study may be fruitful, and that we might carry good tidings between every soul we meet.
And so it is.
And so it is.
How are you, sir?
Doing good. Yeah, I was actually having a thought in regards to the smoke, as I mentioned earlier, because we're experiencing the beginning of wildfire season here in Central Oregon, as well as many other places across the country.
That's pretty much our typical hurricane season or tornado season. We deal with wildfires.
Yeah.
And it's part of living in one of the most beautiful forested areas of the country is that we deal with a tremendous amount of wildfires, which are scary and devastating to our communities, to say the least.
Yeah, and I knew it was gonna, I was expecting it. It's my first time back in Bend after like 19 years of not being here. And
I've been here for about a decade.
And I've always told people, I was living up in Portland for a long time, where it's like more moist and we don't deal with wildfire up there. We get the smoke, but we don't actually have wildfires.
Not
in
the
our
danger
area.
of like, hey, we need to evacuate right now.
Yeah, we did in 2020, which is a whole different astrology story. But last week on Wednesday, we had that lightning storm that kind of started all these wildfires. And I was teaching my astrology class because I teach a in-person astrology class in Bend, Oregon every Wednesday. And what I was mentioning is that as we were beginning the class, the lightning storm was happening, and Uranus was right on the descendant. And as we talked last week, Uranus, or maybe the week before, Uranus is one of the planets that we strongly associate with lightning and electricity and stuff like that. And so literally the lightning strikes were happening in the west while Uranus was descending in the west simultaneously. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's actually very powerful.
Yeah.
And so there's fires going on and blessings all those people and the families. I know we've been doing prayers, and Devon and I are both a part of a ministry, and we go to a spiritual community. And I know I've seen a lot of prayers going out for people and for protection. The big thing in our area that people don't think about is the animals. So you reach a certain size of ranch that what are you going to do with all of your animals? You just don't have trailers to move everybody out. And so you can reach out to the community to get help. Or in certain cases, the deal is you just have to spray paint your name on the sides of your horses or your animals and open up the gates and say good luck.
Just let them free.
And just hope that they have a better chance out there than they do. And that's an extremely traumatic thing for people to be going through. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thought that I had about it too was like, there's all these practices that involve like smoke, and I'm not an expert on indigenous practices and anything by that nature.
I know a lot more. I'm not an expert, but I know a lot more. Yeah.
But I know that like smoke is meant for like cleansing and protection and all these other things, and I kind of feel like Mother Nature's like smudging the crap out of Western culture right now.
Maybe. I mean, we also live inside of the last ponderosa pine biome, which thrives on fire. So ponderosa pine biome is a very rare biome. It primarily only exists in this one belt in the Pacific Northwest at this point. primarily because it's being eradicated by Douglas fir and white fir because they can compete when the fires don't come through. So the ponderosas thrive on a fire environment. They come through, they start growing in stands, and then the fires will come through, and the ponderosas self-limb at a certain age, and they start limbing out their lower extremities. And it makes it so that when the fires sweep through and the sagebrush and everything else, it clears out the juniper, it clears out the sage, it clears out all of the competing classes. And the ponderosa pine end up growing in these stands, basically. You have stands with these large prairie grasses of annuals in between because once the fires burn through, the annuals come through. And they would then be giving food and forage to the large herds that were moving through this area. I mean, massive herds of elk, massive herds of deer, massive herds of, I don't know the exact animal portfolio historically, because most of my permaculture work in this area, John Day, was done new, but we're a very low precipitation area. We get less than 10 inches of rain a year, which is tiny. And so the only
it's a high desert.
It's a high desert. It's very, very minimal amount. We actually, on a Coppinger scale, relate most closely with northern Mongolia, which is one of the most desolate areas. And so inside of our biome, it's very, very necessary to have fire, and we live here. And so in my way, I kind of say the humans are dumb for being here in this moment, because and
you chose this.
Well, we've been attempting to stop and mitigate a natural process that occurs over and over. And in many ways, we have mitigated it, which then we're killing off another biome, right? Which, whether that's good or bad, what you want to see. And so it's pretty interesting. And in relation to the smoke, I think that's a fun concept. The smoke is always really important because you're taking a physical matter and turning it into a metaphysical substance. So the belief is that when you're giving intention and consciousness into the item that is projecting the smoke, you are allowing for that intention and consciousness to be carried across the barrier of realms and to be heard on the other side in the metaphysical plane. Different smokes are used for different reasons. It's primarily, if you look back on it, classical shamanism has many of the same key points.
When you use the word classical, what do you?
So
where does classical shamanism?
It's actually a word that me inside of my lineage with my drum teacher that we like to use because the word that gets used many times is it's not neo. Is it like neo-traditional?
Neo-pagan?
Yeah, like neo-traditional. People say like neo-traditional or something like that. And so I don't really like that word because the reality is most historical shamanism has very traditional pieces that are similar across all cultures. So when I use the word classical shamanism, I'm basically trying to broadcast a net across all of the world's lineages of having some shamanic practice or another as we've gained, as we've grown into a society.
And so by shaman, are you using that word as like a universal word for like a land-based spiritual practice?
Basically, yeah. And it's just shamanism tends to be the word that's used for it. And so there's a few lineages of the metaphysics, right? And so you have shamanism, you have yoga, which is actually one of the oldest metaphysical practices that you can look at. I mean, it's very, very well recorded and it's survived many years. And then you have, what is it? Sorcerer's Stone, Philosopher's Stone.
Alchemy.
Alchemy.
Yeah.
You have alchemy. Alchemy is one of the metaphysical practices. We interact with alchemy more commonly than we do any of the rest of them. We just forget that it's alchemy.
Yeah, like advertising.
We use it constantly. Alchemy is used very, very, very consistently inside of all societies. In many ways, you could say it's probably it at this point is a negative metaphysical force in some ways rather than a positive one. But shamanism is...
I think you said 4, and we've only named 3.
I meant 3.
Oh, okay.
I meant 3. If I said 4, I meant 3. And so in relation to shamanism, this is me using that as once again, a general term for, like you said, land-based or nature-based religions. Typically, almost all cultures adapted some connection with their environment and their experience. Just like the astrology, they began observing and tracking the stars. They began observing and tracking the phenomenon in their experience. The first record of a shaman or a person who was seen, at least as far as we can tell, historically as a medicine man or, a practitioner of the cultures was, I think, over 12,000 years ago.
A medicine person.
Yeah, they found bones of people buried with different shakers or different wings on them or different things. And the first representations of these people were always, almost always in connection with animals, at least that we can tell historically. So there was some sort of animal man bond that then allowed us to have further insights into the metaphysical realm. Most of the cultures adapted an ability to communicate with that realm. And that is what we call shamanism, is that culture's ability to communicate with their experience and the phenomenon on a metaphysical level. And it's broad. So some of the most fascinating ones are the Korean shamans, are really cool. They're still going to this day. They have some really, really fun practices. And we're back. Yeah, I was talking about the Korean shamans. They're really, really fascinating, and every culture has different practices and different uses for different medicinal herbs based on where they were living.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, people say sage, and we run into sage very frequently here in the U.S. because our native indigenous cultures primarily use sage because it was very prevalent. Sage is a medicinal herb that showed itself to the early people and has been being used as a clearing herb and things like that for generations. Down south, they have different herbs. In China, they have different herbs. In Korea, they have different herbs. But the principle is all the same. The smoke has an ability inside of some of these herbs and some of these plants to clear, cleanse, or purify in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I think, and I think a lot of what people can take away from that, well, is first of all, like, one of the struggles that we deal with is, like, as Westerners who are mainly raised by consumerism, like, become spiritually enthusiastic, will cause or perpetuate a cycle of over harvesting on specific types of herbs sometimes and things like that.
Or even go one step further where you're harvesting herbs without realizing what they're doing, or you're also not harvesting them at the right time, or
Yeah,
you're not giving
all the other.
you're not praying beforehand, you're not doing a ceremony beforehand, and it's like supplements
Yeah,
inside
yeah,
of the Western world. It's actually kind of ridiculous. We're just taking all these herbs that we don't really understand and just throwing them in our system.
Yeah, and the direction I was also headed with that too is that this is part of what is so important in astrology as well, is that, like, these practices that people have developed over the course of time immemorial of developing their culture, their religion, their heritage, is they have relationship to the land. They have relationship to the herb, like you were mentioning, knowing when to harvest it, how to propagate it. One of my favorite lessons, quick lessons that I learned while I was learning how to do some sacred slaughter work was this woman was telling this wonderful woman was telling this story about how like this elder person in her heritage was like, have any of y'all ever planted any of these herbs? Like, no, all you do is take, and, like, that's, have you, if you smudge, if you use sage, or if you use any sort of plant as a smoking medicine in your life, have you actually participated in the full life cycle, or are you only participating in the consuming part?
I would say, even for me in general, almost all consuming. Yeah, I haven't done much of the planning. I also want to reference, because you talked about different people's cultures and religions and traditions. That is why I use the word classical shamanism. I find it to be very important not to be claiming a lineage that you're not trained in. And so, both of us have different lineages that we are actually trained in at certain levels, and we're continuing our education in certain levels of different things. And so I use the word classical shamanism because it's historically all of our cultures had some version or another of this. And then you can dive in and look at their specific traditions, which should be held with value. And it's very important as a person in the 20th century, if you are not trained 21st, if you are not trained in a certain lineage, not to be claiming it, or not to be, speaking about it ad nauseum, or saying, I know how to do this, or I know how to do that. It's much better to just say, hey, if you just look at classical shamanism in general, it's got very simple key points: set and setting, intention, you create the space, you clear the space, you do your ceremony, you close the space. everything that happens inside of that can vary greatly, as long as, not as long as, it can vary greatly, right? And it just depends on which culture is doing it and everything else. And so by going to a term like classical shamanism, or kind of resting in that, you're resting rather in just an overall global heritage of a process that we've had forever, right? And saying, okay, this is a process that I can do. I recently, some of these same principles, setting, clearing the space, ceremony, closing the space, I do it for mind maps with friends, just to set an intention and to set a space and to call forth our intuition, things like that, right? It can be very general rather than having to be very specific. And inside of this day and age of YouTube and everything else, there's a lot of people who like to claim different lineages.
Yeah.
And that's an issue.
Yeah.
Right? It's a really big issue.
Yeah, I close and open the space for my classes that I teach too, because, once again, in astrology, like place is super important. And, I think a conversation we were having earlier this week is, as I was diving deeper into my sacred geometry practice, is like, there is, just this concept of like, we have a space that nobody else can occupy. That's part of what makes astrology work on such an individual level. And so place becomes super important. And so when I open and close the directions of the corners, I utilize a language that is astrology focused and, recognize that like, yes, we face the south and we send gratitude to the sun and the moon and the stars because we can see them changing in the south. Like that's what the south teaches us from the northern hemisphere perspective.
And so for me, what's interesting is I've gone along, each of the directions kind of means something different to me. And once again, I think that's okay as long as you express it that way and you communicate it that way. So I pray the directions very commonly. The Buddha talks about honoring the 7 directions. I honor the 7 directions. So I do all 4 directions, then above, below, and so within. And so that's how I was kind of trained. And so for me in the South is purity. Yeah. The South is all about purification.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's what the South represents for me. And the East is new beginnings. The West is closure. And the North is healing.
Oh, interesting.
Is always for me. So when I'm doing any type of work, any healing work or things like that, that's how I use the directions. And what's really funny and important is it only matters to you.
Yeah.
Like, once again, there's these people who get stuck on this is the exact way that you need to do something. And what I found in my experiences is the intention and the motivation that matters. And if that there was some secret code that we could do something in some exact portion without the intention and motivation, just doing the thing and it got a result, we would be doing it nonstop. What really matters is that you have belief in those directions. That's what it means to you. Thus, you're able to bring that out of that space we were talking about. You're able to bring that out of your own energetic system and to use it. And so as you're going along, for a lot of people, especially in this day and age where we're now at a time of open source spirituality, just find what works for you. And then say that it's yours. Don't say that it's somebody else's. Say that it's yours, and this is what works for me, and I like this, and that's why I like it. And I find that you can have a lot of effect with that.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a good place to like step through that portal and step onto the next, some sort of next topic. I feel like we've really covered that really nicely.
Yeah, we'll talk about drumming another day too. It's one of the fascinating things about
Ezekiel makes drums,
and I like playing them too. The one of the fascinating things about tracking the timeline for a lot of these histories, which I would really love to at some point, is build out a timeline of all of our cultures and everything that was occurring. Because has anyone done that?
So there's this really great book.
Is that the one you showed me? The giant one by the lady.
Oh no, that's a different one.
Okay.
I do have a lot of big books though. I hope you like big books. This one's actually called The Dawn of Everything.
Okay.
And so the goal of the dawn of everything, there's especially in the West, we're taught kind of this narrative of the cradle of civilization, that all of civilization kind of like blossomed out of the Iranian, what is now Iran and the Middle East area. And that's kind of like a outdated narrative at this point.
Very outdated.
And so what the Dawn of Everything does is it takes all of the current knowledge of archaeological dated things and puts them all on the same playing field together.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I just want to look at it on a consciousness level, on a level of spirituality.
I think, well, you know, a lot of our oldest relics are all spiritual
Sure.
based. So I think you'd find it as a good, like, it's a great stepping
Sure,
point.
yeah.
Because it talks about like the age of Göbekli Tepe, but then it also brings out the age of this place that used to be where Louisiana is now, and how they're relatively the same age, and just it's a really great book. Highly recommended for all the history nerds out there if you haven't. Dawn of Everything.
Yeah,
Ambitious title.
I'd like to check it out because there's so many common threads, and we have a global population now, and we can communicate with each other. And as you go through the history, so much of it is so common, which to me I love because I believe in unity and I believe in this one mind concept. So I really see it when I look back on it. Drumming is one of the ways that we very early figured out how to alter our brain state. So if you begin doing repetitive drumming of anywhere between 3 to 7 beats per second, 7 is very fast. I drum at like 5, which is very fast. My teacher drums at 4. But right around 3 to 4 beats per second, you begin altering your brain waves. And when you begin altering your brain waves with intention, you have the ability to begin interacting with phenomenon, if you want to call it that, with the other side, the realms that other people work in. And it's all from the drum. And so very early on, even just whacking on a stick or whacking whatever, we figured out these different methods. And so drumming is one of the major ones, but the smoke, finger position, prayer, there's very common threads.
Mantra, song.
Yeah, it's very, very, very...
It's basically art.
Yeah, in a way. So we're going to spend some time talking about philosophy today. One of the things I did recently was I took some questions, some axes, and that are foundational for many philosophical beliefs, and I went through them.
Is the list called something?
No, these are just ones that I went off of in
okay.
order to be able to get a good model for where I'm working. And
it's not like the acolyte's entry into philosophy.
No, we're philosophers. Everyone would just be arguing about what the question should be. So, like, it's mainly just trying to get a grip. So there's these larger concepts about philosophy. Are you an idealist? Are you a realist? What do you believe about this? But there's some large questions, right? And so this just covers a lot of the large questions because I was finding that in conversation, I did not know how to qualify myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like because words can contain entire lineages of ideas, and so it's a quicker way of getting on to the next subject.
Yes, and if you're talking to people who are conversant, then you need to have the language to be able to talk with them, or else you don't know what you're talking about. And so it's just the beginning process of me, and I also did it simultaneously with starting to train myself on just basic logic. Which is a fun process, because the reason I started training on logic was I found when I went through these 13 questions that I contradicted myself on 6 of them.
Oh, yeah.
There's 6 things that I could not technically believe at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I didn't even mean to do it. It was very enlightening. I was like, oh, and I was able to rectify them very quickly because the strength of some of them were so much larger than others.
But you didn't know that they needed to be rectified until you had them laid out in
100%.
front of you.
How would you?
Yeah.
How would you know?
Yeah.
So here's the first one.
You can play at home.
Yeah, you can play at home. Metaphysics of the real. When you strip everything away, what is functionally real? Fundamentally real. Apologies, I'm reading. Is the universe made of matter with mind as a byproduct? Is the universe made of mind with matter as appearance, both irreducibly or neither? So the major positions on this is physicalism. These are very good definitions for people. Physicalism would mean that only matter and energy is fundamental, that our experience is basically just a result of chemical reactions which are occurring inside of your system. There's nothing special occurring. It's just a body that is having chemical reactions, and when a body is formed in this way, then that's what occurs. Idealism, mind is fundamental. So dualism, Both irreducibly. We've talked about dualism ad nauseum. So the dualist perspective is that they are both occurring and you can't reduce either of them. It's both a physical and a mental experience. Neutral monism, one underlying substance that is neither mental nor physical. Or panpsychism, experience is a basic feature of all matter, meaning everything is conscious.
Yeah, that's the one that last one is the one that I usually stand on.
Panpsychist?
Yeah,
Why?
panpsychist. Because it's the only way in and out from an individual's perspective to also be included inside of the whole. And by individual, I'm not speaking human. I'm speaking all relative things that are part of our dualistic reality. And when I mean dualistic reality is like the difference between myself and a coffee mug is that we take different forms, and that's what makes us in a dualistic reality.
Sure.
But the panpsychism is the fundamentally the only way that I can have my individual perspective and then also dissolve into the everything that there is as well.
100%. So do you believe that everything is conscious?
Yeah, I believe everything is conscious. Yeah, 100%. Everything has a sense of agency.
So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So panpsychism and idealism kind of have this little difference where they interact. And so panpsychism is that matter is very relevant, like physical matter is really relevant, but in a way everything is conscious, right? So everything has an ability or some level of consciousness going on around it. Idealism is that mind isn't a property of matter, that the overall one substance isn't actually matter. There's something occurring outside of physical matter, which is the underlying, it's mind. That would be considered the one mind. It's not matter. It's not governed by the rules of matter.
Well, that's where I get a little bit dualistic with it, because I do think that everything has its own piece of consciousness, and it's only when it's all happening together that it becomes the total whole.
Yeah, we'll get there in a little bit as well, because you start to see with the interactions of how everything's occurring. So here's a question that I have for you. Does an electron have a tiny bit of consciousness and experience, or is the electron itself an appearance within the experience?
It has a piece of the consciousness itself, and also and also so does the environment that it's happening inside of.
So yeah, panpsychism.
So the space
Yeah.
in between the
you fall in the same place I do, which I haven't been able to rectify, which is my idealism and my panpsychism. I tend to lean a little bit more towards idealism with like a panpsychist flavor, because I have been exploring so much of the Buddhist concept of one mind that at this point I would actually be called a Buddhist idealist. And so because I believe the one mind is so fundamental, that I, at this stage, believe that all matter is just a result of the one mind. Does that make sense? And so I think the one pervading substance is more important than the consciousness aspect.
Yeah, I wouldn't place one. I wouldn't hierarchy them. Yeah.
No. Okay, let's go to the next question. Personal identity.
Personal identity.
So when we're talking about this gets into the concept of I and you. Which is a large concept in general, the concept of I, self, what the self is.
Who are you?
Yes. Is there a persistent you? What makes the person sitting here the same person as the child in your old photos? Or are you the same at all?
The thing that persists, so here's where the astrology kicks in for me, because, obviously it ties in. The thing that persists is the piece of soul that I was imbued with, but and it has a root sustaining like energy to it, but the expression of that energy is what changes over time, and that includes how my body changes, how my perceptions change, so forth and so on. But there is a seated piece of me.
There's a seated you.
Yeah, but it doesn't. But it's not. it's not eternal. Like when I die.
That was exactly what I was about to ask. So with this, if there is a seeded version of yourself, so one of the best ways to view this, if you've never really played with these mind experiments, is the experience that you don't age, but your body does. And so many human beings can say at the age of 65 years old, I feel like I'm 20 or I feel like I'm 18. It's a very common phenomenological experience that you don't really feel like you're aging that much. The internal you, rather you just watch your body age as it goes along. And this is where people come up with the concept of a soul and a more eternal self. So Devon said there's a seed, but it's not eternal. So explain.
Yeah, well, there's kind of a trine thing here, a triple thing here.
Sure.
There's or three parts to the soul, if you will, to the me, that makes a Devon. The first part is is my piece of divinity that is the thing that's unchanging inside of me. The second is the lineage that's contained in my DNA that was seeded at the same moment as my soul was, or maybe the DNA was seeded that created the container that my soul was imbued into.
That's a fun concept.
And then the third piece is the time and place in which I was born into. And so all three of those are what created Devon, which makes me an individual in this period of time and history and so forth and so on. But when those three split, then Devon ceases to exist. A piece of me can be continued on in my DNA lineage, and that I like to use that as a model for why it's important to heal family lines, because it's contained in that DNA seed.
Yes.
And then, but the eternal piece of me returns and disperses to never appear again, because it's a part of the energy fabric that is contained in all things. So it's not...
It just goes back to the ocean.
Yeah, it just goes back to the
ocean.
ocean.
And doesn't remember its individuality if it gets sent out again. It would just be a different drop at a different moment.
And then the moment of time has ended because those three things have separated. So now cease to exist.
What are your thoughts on rebirth? Because that's one of the bigger questions that everybody needs to face theologically. That is a huge divider. And many people, I feel, have never actually seriously looked at this question. But there's an entire subset of the theological world that believes in rebirth and an entire subset that doesn't. And where do you fall on that?
Well, it's interesting because I also believe in like past life experiences and stuff like that.
So
right?
That's what I mean with the believing two things at once. Like you can't believe in a one round with a past life, or you'd have to have a very interesting explanation for it.
Well, and this is where astrology plays in, is like, because what you find is you find kind of one of the main ways astrology works, especially on a humanistic personality level wise, is that you find similar characteristics in people. And so you can see like maybe somebody being connected to a piece of the past and being able, because I also don't believe in linear time as like the only construct, that like when you're born, if you have Jupiter in the same place that so-and-so had Jupiter, you are spatially, thematically tied to that person's life in some way, shape, or form. So you can call back and have a piece of that reverberation.
So
but no chart will ever repeat itself.
So because we're talking about something that I feel like it might be good to have a consistent model over the next half hour of conversation, can we define a model that we'll agree on for a moment?
Sure.
Because I like it so much and I've been reading up on it, can we use the simulation model for this lens?
Sure.
And so for people to understand that we're just in a thought experiment right now. So
we're just talking.
We're deciding on a lens to look at because we want to have the same picture. And so for me and Devon have talked about the simulation model a lot. So it's somewhere where we're both comfortable with it.
Yeah, we're fluid.
Yeah. And so for the sake of you guys listening along, this lens, this thought experiment would put into place that we are here inside of a projected reality, that there is an entrance into this reality that occurs when you are born. At the time of birth, you come through a portal of sakes or a location through your mother's birth canal. And at that time, you are stamped with a certain set of user interfaces or skill sets or things from the astral projection that is occurring at that time. You are then also carrying forward a certain set of skills, traumas, or things from your genetic coding, which we talked about. And then in some way, shape, or form, you are carrying forward a more eternal player character, almost like a soul character or some energy that is imbibing this, that is external to the simulation. So in order for the simulation model to work, you have to accept for this lens that there's something outside of the simulation. Right.
Yeah.
And so
A video game.
Yeah, that would be, depending on your own viewpoint, Devon's viewpoint, as he just defined, is a non-cognizant player. So to him, he believes that the player is just an insert of this energetic field that is the one mind, and thus it's just playing out its part inside of the time window. Other people might see it as a conscious player on the other side, that some being that maybe represents you or something else is actually having an ability to affect change on the environment. There's a lot of things, but for right now, we're going to use the simulation model. So as we're discussing it, feel free
We'll have
to
something to come back
we'll have something to come back to.
Yeah.
And so, because my main question actually comes into what I just attempted to define for you, which is when you get into the concept of rebirth, there's a few different models for it that are kind of agreed upon.
Like the Tibetan Book of the Dead Bardo
Sure.
baby
Well, that's one of
version.
them. That's one of them. Yeah. And so, and it's not even to say that they're agreed upon, but they're accepted by large lineages and practiced.
There's a large group of people.
There's a large group of people who believe
in
it.
the concept. Yeah.
The Hindu model is different than the Buddhist model.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the Hindu model, they believe on a direct continuation in a way, meaning that you are actually the same soul being born again in a new proto-organism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is a generalization, and I apologize. We're only in an hour podcast. We're not going to be able to dig into all of them, but feel free to comment if I'm wrong. I would love to hear it. And so with the Hindu, they believe in like a direct continuation.
Mm-hmm.
Which gives you the ability to experience those past lives directly, you know, depending on enlightenment levels in their model. So do you believe in that? Or it didn't sound like that when you said it.
So like in the model that I believe in, you know, there's no linear time. And so
Meaning that everything is occurring simultaneously.
everything is occurring simultaneously.
I agree with you
in all directions.
I agree with you in that model. Yeah.
And so when I'm saying all directions, I should make it clear that I mean that not, because sometimes when people start talking about nonlinear time, they're still only thinking about it directionally, as in like all of the future is happening and all the past is happening. But when I'm saying all directionally, I'm also meaning all of the different possible choices that you could have made in your life that would change the projection
Are also occurring simultaneously.
Which
is where...
So basically the tree, the same way that a tree's roots go down and up simultaneously, like it's the same sort of like you're just in the focal center point of the tree of life.
I'm understanding.
Yeah. Well, I'm just, you know.
Yep.
And so, so in that, yes, we have access to both the past and the future of a limited scope into what we can comprehend at the point of reference, which is still a limited window, which is who is Devon Malone. These literal two eyes that can experience as much as they can. But, and what I can experience is only limited by what I can consciously comprehend at any given moment, which can be everything or specific things. Mm-hmm. So that's where I do think people can like experience parts of themselves that have come through time and space through a rooted river connection, but it doesn't mean it's the only one they've experienced. It's the one that they've been able to hold enough to be able to relate it back when they're in the moment now.
Sure. But so even in there, you said the words when they many times, right? Mm-hmm. Which means that there's a continuation of a person, a self, or a you.
Well, it's one of the reasons why I use the term they is because it's a plural.
You think it's a but still that would imply that it's the same thread.
That they're choosing that, or that they're being guided, not being guided, but that they have caught onto in that moment in order to bring that experience to the larger whole in this now.
Yeah. So the way that and I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
The way that I end up rectifying it for myself currently in my belief system is that because I am playing with and living in this lens of the one mind, of the one pervading substance over everything, to me, the past life regressions are rectified by realizing that we all were everything at one point in time. Does that make sense? So if there's one mind substance pervading everything, then I am the table. I am everything. That is all just one substance pervading. We are all unified at all moments.
But you use the term at one time.
What? Yeah, okay, so I would have to define that better. So all mind is occurring, everything is occurring simultaneously from one exact substance, that we are all part of the same thing. When I say we, our experience is part of it, our physical bodies are part of it, the mind is part of it, and the mind is not individual. And thus you can, in moments there is the ability to have the phenomenological experience of existing as this other being. And it doesn't mean that you're related to them. It just means that we're all the same substance. What? Okay, we are back. And so I find that when you get into the topic of rebirth, and now this is a side topic rather than me just questioning Devon's beliefs. When you get into the topic of rebirth, it's a very hard question. And the main thing that people bring up are past life regressions, or this ability to have experiences of those. Right. And they're real, and people have them, and it's a big thing. Or near-death experiences can bring things like this, hypnotism, psychedelic states. There's all types of things that can bring about these experiences.
Well, and that's, taking it back to the piece of the soul that is the DNA, like that is
that in your model is what I think is the best one.
That's the train.
Yeah.
That's the tracks of the body.
Sure. For me, where I find it to be the reason I was bringing it up is that I find this issue with a lot of people, especially in the metaphysical community, where they get very hooked on these experiences of, oh, I was this person, or I was this, or I was that.
I was Alexander the Great.
And it's real, and you run into it, and people really latch on to these things because the experiences can be so visceral.
It's always somebody like famous.
Not all, usually.
It's usually somebody.
It's
never
somebody.
like,
or
I was a smith.
It's very common as well inside of psychedelic work that people will have. I'm Jesus moment. Especially men, they'll be like, I'm Jesus. And it's like, no, you're not. I promise. In a way, but
I mean, you are. We're all Jesus.
Well, that is actually why, like I said, to me, I've had these very fascinating, and not Jesus moment, but I've had these really fascinating experiences that are hard to rectify. Like that was real. I had this information at one point with these past life regressions that I really shouldn't have known, and it checked out to be correct. And it's just a minor experience in one dude's life. It's nothing special to write home about. And so the way that I rectify it is, rather than saying, attaching onto this because that becomes a negative in their spiritual path, right? It becomes negative, and it's this attachment that they have. I personally look at it and go, yeah, we're all one mind and one substance. So in a moment, you might be able to latch on to, like you said, that one memory, that one thread. It's irrelevant. It's fascinating, but irrelevant,
Or it's meant, there's definitely lessons that can be taken from it.
Sure.
And if y'all are wondering why this is a more serious conversation, it's because the funny one is doing all the talking.
True.
I'm not good at being
I think it's a good conversation.
It's a great conversation. I just wanted to make that clear that the funny one is the one talking serious right now. And so,
my right now though, for you, just because we're going to move on. So the personal identity, the you defined it. You know what that is for yourself. So do you believe that there is any enduring essence?
Not of Devon Malone, Devin Malone doesn't continue moving
Okay.
forward.
So
I
would
have
you
to have all three pieces.
So this is one of the major positions, and I'm going to define it for you, and I think that it might be where you line. It's called narrative identity, which is yourself is just a story being told for the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. It's definitely a co-writing of the story, because there's
Sure.
an implication in that statement
but
of
the
it being just like a role that I'm playing. But I do believe that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that in that statement. Though.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely not that. It's more so saying that it's a book.
Yeah.
It begins and it ends, and then when it ends, there's not another book of Devin Malone.
Yeah. That's that. What I think happens is that what we do in this reality and what is being done in this reality is that individuals who want to be immortalized make sure that their family continues on the train that they started. And that's kind of where we are in a lot of our culture structures, especially in the West.
You ready for the next one?
Yep.
Are ethical truths discovered or invented?
Ethical truths. Name an ethical truth.
Is every human believed cruelty was good? Would it be good? That would be an ethical truth. So if we all decided that cruelty was good, would it actually be good? Because on a societal experiential basis, we're all saying that it's good. We're experiencing it as good. Is it good?
I just don't think ethics is real.
Okay, well then what would you define it as?
Well, I define...
Let me ask you this question. When we say torturing innocents is wrong, torturing children, right? Are we describing a fact about reality or expressing a preference our culture trained us into?
I think we're expressing a not just a piece that our culture trained us into. I think that it's as in like human specifically. I think that it's a part of the inherent continuation of the process that is having an Earth.
I don't understand what you said. I mean, I understand the words that you said, but you mean it's just part of having an Earth?
Yeah.
Sure.
But I don't think.
But that would mean that they're discovered. They're not. They're just true. Like cruelty is wrong regardless. Like torturing a child.
Yeah, they're
is wrong.
discovered. Yeah.
We don't invent them.
Yeah, they're discovered. Yeah.
Which means that there's some base truths of reality. Would be what that means. It means that there's things out there that are just true and that you can't make them false.
Well, no, because I think that the discovery aspect also allows room for us to rediscover, or maybe not rediscover, but alter as we go based on how things continue moving as a larger group.
Sure.
Yeah, so like it's definitely like something that we come to, just in the same way that science is like not something that we actually invent. It's an awareness that we
have to
gain.
discover. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
just like language is a discovery.
Moral facts exist independently of opinion, or morality is built by rational agreement, which is a lot of what you just said. As we continue to gain as a culture, we rationally agree that this is just what's right.
Yeah, it's definitely from my perspective, quote unquote right and wrong, and how we deal with that is based on cultural cohesion, not on and then thus becomes varied between groups of people.
Well, yeah, then
who
you
live
have
with each other.
relativism. I can't say that word right now. Which is each culture is different.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I agree with that, because to me, I feel in a lot of ways that there's these things that are just right and wrong, and that
it's not just the right and wrong though. It's like, how do you deal with the wrong?
Well, yeah, I get that, but
that's a deeper question to the right versus wrong, because being able to say like, hey, it's not okay to kill people is different than saying, okay, we agree that it's not okay to kill people, but what do we do with the person who killed people?
Yeah.
That's the extension
the society
of the cultural.
That's the extension,
cultural
but
narrative.
the more foundational question is it right or wrong to kill people? And some people will say it's you just decided that's right or wrong. That actually has nothing to do. There is no wrong with that. That's just a societal structure that's
It is.
decided
It
that.
is a societal structure.
I
I mean, we're
disagree.
we're literally it. Well, I mean, in practice, it's a societal structure.
Yeah, I know. But I believe on a foundational level, as an experience, that as I've improved as a human being, it hasn't really been because I've learned a lesson or listened to society. It's because I've remembered and I've done enough work to know what's right and wrong. Right. And you just start entering this phase of your existence where, like, you know what's right or wrong. And that's why you start shedding these things out. And it becomes very difficult as you go more towards the unifying one mind, one force to live in a life not of compassion, not of empathy, and not of caring. And so for me, it's not a societal structure. Like, you can say whatever you want. Rape is wrong, and it's not that people can't come back from it, or all these things. You need to be condemned. It's not that we have to, whatever the society decides on it, that's fine. To me, whatever you decide, it's wrong, And so there's these, like, very base level things that I feel like are foundational. And because of that, it changes how I look at the world. Like, because that's just a truth. It's not an opinion. And it's not everything. Like, a lot of people try to take this into the opinion realm. We're talking about, like, very foundational things. And a lot of it have to do with freedom and sovereignty, And I feel like because it's a societal question, we even talk about it. But freedom and sovereignty should not be discussed. It's a foundational reality of our existence.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying there, and it is shifting the way that I answer that question and think about it, because one of the things that we do as a Western culture is that we do take away things, sovereignty, whether it be strip mining or
Tons.
religious practices, all kinds of things, and then applying it to land and creatures and just all kinds of things. There's a sense of inherent authority over other people, other beings, sovereignty that we express a lot in the culture that we are raised in, unconsciously at this point.
And to me, I found that as I went through and I really started playing with this in my thoughts, because you have to have the experience of it. Discussing it's one thing, but really sitting and going through it, even like you said, you get a different viewpoint as you're conversing about it. I found that it was very important to realize that a lot of these, what we would consider moral facts, were foundational. That was a very different lens for me, right? And it changed the way I look at the work that I do. It changed a lot, because no longer was I trying to gain a skill. I was trying to strip away layers.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to my experience that I've had as I've gone through a lot of the sutras and a lot of the Buddhist teachings, which is that when the Buddha describes the mind, the true state of nibbana, of, like, gone beyond thought and everything else, is a completely still body of water. Right. And that we are actually causing all the disturbance, our experience, the whatever's happening, the aggregates and everything coming into junction, to desire, all coming together, are just creating and causing the ripples.
Mm-hmm.
I never really understood that. Does that make sense? I thought the ripples was occurring and it was, like, my job to try to calm down. And what I realized was I was the one causing all the ripples, And so when I started seeing, it was a very similar experiential flip for me, that when I saw moral fact as a relative foundation, it changed my perspective on things a lot. And it also changed and gave me more compassion to a lot of the world in strange ways.
Yeah, that's nice.
What are your, I asked Devon this question a lot. What are your thoughts on free will? Are you genuinely free? If every event has a cause and your decisions arise from brain states you didn't choose, in what sense did you choose anything?
Yeah, this is where I believe in a co-creative reality. And so there is there's a malleability to free will and choice. And this is, so we end up with this a lot in astrology, of these types of questions, because when you get past the narrative of like newspapers and stuff like that, and you get your chart read, like it can start to get spooky. But then when you start to get into timing techniques and where we're able to actually use the algorithm of the math of the planets to be able to see when things are scheduled to appear, is a way to explain timing techniques. This is where people's idea of free will starts getting like really rattled. And what I try to remind my clients or my co-astrologers who are experiencing it for the first time is that anything that arises into your life, if it was scheduled by astrology or not, is a part of your choice of being where you are when you create that experience. So as an example, if you meet the love of your life and it was scheduled for you to meet your love of your life, because when I was doing William and Rivers charts for their ceremony for their marriage last year, they had me do a chart comparison, and it brought me to tears. How beautiful! It's making me cry again.
He's cried about this every moment he's brought up. It's good. We like this.
But you know, you have to know and understand that you were scheduled to have that moment, but who that moment was with and what that moment contextualized in and were you ready for that moment is about the work that you've done to get there. Mm-hmm. And then it gets harder when it's unexpected things. And then that's where like the why did this happen to me? Like sometimes people, you know, internalize things that are happening to somebody else that's happening to them. Like, why did my mom die? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, why is this happening to me? Well, it didn't happen to you. It happened to your mom, and you're just having to deal with the grief of it. And it was scheduled with this certain thing in astrology. And, and so this free will thing becomes, you can miss a moment. There's moments that you've missed that you didn't even know you missed.
Oh, they're always tiny.
Yeah.
In the moment.
And then it builds up over time. And the thing that makes this interesting with the way that we live for life right now is that the culture that we exist inside of knows how important and how valuable our moments are. Mm-hmm. And so much money is spent on capturing our moments to be used to somebody else's ends. Mm-hmm. And so like people doom scroll now and stuff like that. And you're not wasting your life away, but you're wasting your life away. You're missing several moments.
I think that I did it. I'm not saying this from some pedestal. I did it, but yeah, I was wasting my life away.
I still do it. Yeah.
I don't. Stop doing it.
Yeah. But yeah, so I do believe in free will in the sense that I do believe that we are in a co-creative reality, not just with reality itself, but with each other as we build cultures together, and that we can kill the earth as a culture, as a group, and we can also bring it back to life as a culture, as a group. But it's through that freedom of choice, that freedom of will. And it's hard when you're operating inside of a cultural system that is trying to siphon the most valuable asset that you have, which is your time here.
So in my experience, I think the key to free will actually is mindfulness. And before installing mindfulness, I don't feel I had much free will. I feel that I was running on so many automatic system patterns of either childhood traumas or foundational marketing techniques that just got me, or different things like that. But it was literally like an automatic system. I was just running. And I mean, I would wake up and just start picking my nose and jerk off like within 90 seconds of being awake. And it was, you know, and those are extreme examples. And I'm doing hyperbole here. But the reality is my system just started doing stuff without me ever being mindful, right? And then from there, I would get up, I would smoke a cigarette, I would have a large cup of caffeine, and I would just start running on these desire loops and these automated loops or these addiction loops. And it was just constant, and doom scrolling is one of them and everything else. And so in a weird way, I feel like I didn't really have free will until I gained enough mindfulness to be monitoring what was occurring inside of my own mind. And that's when it became co-creative.
Yeah.
That's when I wasn't just doing stuff anymore. I would say things so quickly. I had all these automatic responses. We talked about this in another episode where I'm cognizant of not liking to give emotes and replies. And it's because of that. It's because of living my life for so many years. It wasn't just my sayings. It was everything was automatic.
Yeah.
And in a way, like the path, and I hate this word because it has so many connotations with it, but the path of enlightenment, the path of spiritual growth, whatever you want to call it,
spiritual progress
is turning your automatic systems manual, right? Like how many of my automatic systems can I turn manual? And the reality is the manual nature of it feels hellacious when you begin. Like we want to escape, like the thought of living in manual.
Yeah.
Is terrifying for most people. And so there's a process.
Yeah. And it's hilarious that you say it that way. And which is awesome because, one of the ways that we get back there is to literally focus on one of the most basic manual things you can do, which is breathing.
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's why breathing is so important because you're taking control of the actual energetic system and just driving from there. It's the foundation. I've had long talks. I have full large PowerPoints talking about breath and the importance of breath. And if you're talking about a thread that's consistent between all the spiritual practices, once again, breath is there. Yeah. None of them ignore it. All of them say it is the most important thing. And at this point, actually, for right now, I'm at the point in my practice where my asana practice, my posture practice comes secondary to my breath work.
Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
It's a pretty normal progression that occurs. And it's not, I actually do it my asanas before my breath
work. Is that
work.
why Buddha's fat?
Buddha's not fat.
Kidding.
That's Buddha.
I'm kidding.
Did you say Buddha fat? By the way, the fat Buddha is not the Buddha. That is not Gautama. Like that is not. He only ate 2 meals a day and he begged for his food. The fat Buddha is a Korean monk, I believe, from the 5th century named Budo. And now the century might be incorrect. You could look it up. But his name was Budo, and he was a cheery, happy, fat character. Yeah.
I was hoping you had a response to that.
Yes. It's not. It's not. So we're at an hour. So I pulled our card today, and Devin hasn't got to look at it yet.
I like that. Well, before we even get to the card, I just like that. That we started with talking about how smoky it is outside, and we ended with talking about how important the breath is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
It's a good way to close the loop.
We got justice.
Oh, justice. We've been talking about that all day too. Yeah. So, which is also really funny because one of the ways that I've picked up on talking about justice is the best form of justice are the ones where we are all operating on the rules that we agree on. Mm-hmm. Like that's the best form of justice. Because I could think something's just and you could think something's unjust, and we can go back and forth about the same thing on and on and on. But as far as like actually executing justice, I really like what our friend William says, and that's that justice is just us. We decide what is just. We decide what is just, and it's best if we decide together what is just. And on the other connections of this card, this is Libra in the tarot, which is both of our rising signs.
And we care a lot about justice. Libras do.
Yeah, Libras care about justice.
A lot. And we like to color coordinate things. We like to color coordinate our justice.
If you have a Libra placement and you have not color coordinated anything in your life, I would need to hear from you, because that is one of the few things
Look
that
at my
I can
desktop
just,
right
really...
now. You can see all my color coordinated folders.
I know. I'm surprised they're not like in lines of colors. That might be bothering you now.
It is a little bit. They are on, I think it's because it's actually a mirror of my main desktop. And so I think they are on my big one. Now I'm annoyed by that. Okay, continue.
But yeah, and we're going to be coming through, Venus is going to be returning to Libra soon in tropical zodiac. So that's going to be nice. And also, I was informed today by the tarot to make sure to mention that Leo season is starting tomorrow. The sun is going to be moving into its sign. And so we'll see how how our planet of divine justice, which is seen as Jupiter, who is also in Leo, changes his shape and color when the sun joins him in the sovereign sign that is Leo. And we were talking about sovereignty today too. And yeah, I think my main takeaway from us pulling the justice card today is a reminder to look at your own sovereignty. See what are you tethered to that is unjust? What is tethered? What is stripping you of your sovereignty right now that you can do without? Is it a subscription to an app? Is it time that you spend doing something? Who are you without all the things?
I've been pulling a tarot card every day, just to learn. And so the past few days I've been super overwhelmed. I was telling Devon, and I pulled a card yesterday. I should record them so I can tell you what they were. But basically the card's meaning,
Journal. Most of us journal that do tarot.
okay, yeah. For the background of the card, it was reversed, and it was basically telling me like you're very ungrounded. You need to continue to find some grounding, which I knew. I've been overwhelmed and just traveling too much. And then my card pulled today reminded me that I need to ask for help and reach out, and that it's there, and to be patient and to find. And so in so many ways, what was it that you were just saying? Why did I lose my train of thought?
Talking about justice, sovereignty.
Yeah, sovereignty. I lost my train of thought.
Being tied to many things, tethered to things.
I don't know. We'll just edit it out.
Yeah. No, we won't. We're gonna keep this loss of thought for sure. But luckily you're going to Brighton Bush.
Yes, I am. I'm going to get grounded. I'm going to kind of restore and to come back to my center. And a lot of times, it's just being too overwhelmed, doing too much. It's just doing too much in moments, and we have to remember to come back and to kind of ground inside of ourselves and remember what's important in a lot of ways. Oh, that's what it was. The tasks. Immediately when I become ungrounded, I start going back to old habits. Like immediately, like my emotional desires and my cognition responds to my overall experience, my life, or where I'm at, what I've been doing, what I've been practicing, everything. And immediately it goes to escapism. And it's really funny when you've been living away from it for a little while because you've had a good practice that I go to sloth, I go to escapism almost instantly. Like laziness is actually one of my biggest things that I deal with, where I'll bring in something.
You wouldn't know it if you knew him.
Yeah, but I'll bring in something at the door and I'll like leave it right inside the doorway rather than putting it away. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that type of
unfinished
stuff,
task.
it's all unfinished task or like escapism.
There's a difference between unfinished task and laziness, I believe, from my perspective, my own rules.
Yeah. So to not go on too far of a tangent, but the reason that I use the word laziness is because that is the experience as defined inside of many of the Buddhist practices that I follow and I read and study about. And so, it's laziness. It's just called laziness. It's one of the major downfalls of most of society. So, it's kind of a harsh word to use for yourself in many ways, in certain ways. And it's kind of a harsh word to explain the experience in a lot of ways, because I agree with you. Like that's more of an unfinished, I'm not like completely being lazy, but it's laziness. It's just, I am adverse to doing the thing. And so I want to go do something that I want to do rather than doing the thing that I don't want than to complete the task. And then what ends up happening for me is that it ends up compounding and I get miserable. And so with the releasing and letting go of things that we were talking about with the transition, it's so much better to live without those items.
Yeah.
Almost always.
Yeah. And this is, this is also just a part of having Jupiter in Virgo too. This is one of Ezekiel's placements. Okay, what do we got? Is that the one of the ways that you can alleviate yourself from that laziness is by scheduling yourself for less.
The hard part is I schedule for like everything.
I know. That's the Jupiter.
That's the Jupiter's fault?
Yeah.
It's Jupiter's fault?
Yeah, because some people argue that there's no bad placements for planets, and I disagree with those people. There's the Jupiter expands the perfectionism of Virgo to an infinitum state that makes it too hard to live a normal life.
Yeah, it sucks.
And so and I know you do a good job of like scheduling yourself for fun, but I'm sure that wasn't automatic. I'm sure that's something you've learned over time.
It's actually the really hard part for me is living a balanced gray life, which is I'm either doing fun or I'm doing work. And so,
off and on.
Yeah, it's an off and on thing, which is which is actually why I have my life scheduled the way if you notice, like half of my week is work and half of my week I'm just gone doing other things. And so it's never been an issue to schedule myself for fun. The issue is that I'll schedule only fun.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'll go through these spurts of like hard work where I'm just working and doing nothing but work and then nothing but fun and then nothing but work and then nothing but fun. And I get really, really burnt out.
Yeah. Because you're not doing the actual mutable thing, which is what the Virgo sign is a mutable sign, which is transition. That's the goal of mutable signs, is to be able to transition. And it's something that's supposed to come natural to them. Your rising sign is a cardinal, so that means it's like starting. But the Jupiter living in your mind, because Virgo's your 12th house, so it has to do with your consciousness and things of that nature. Jupiter's expanding your consciousness and making it harder for you to transition. Not making you, it's the signature that expresses itself that way. I try to not speak in fatalism. But yeah, so the goal is to learn how to take less tasks instead of just scheduling more fun tasks.
It's a process, and I actually know, because intuitively I've been telling myself this, where it's just we just need less stuff. I really want a very quiet, simple life, and it's very strange because if you know me, you'd be like, you're full of shit, and but I do. I actually do. Like I think that's why I love my sadhana so much, and I love my quiet hours and my time that I have. Is I really actually prefer. I've had moments where I've just been practicing different, either whatever. In the moments where I can have not a lot going on, I find so much joy and so much happiness and just simplicity. But it feels like it's impossible. Like literally feels like it's impossible. Like it feels like all these events have nothing to do. I just always have a ton of things going on, regardless if I want to or not. Is that Jupiter's fault?
Well, we're not going to blame everything on Jupiter today. Jupiter's in Leo. We love Jupiter and Leo as Libra risings. Jupiter. And happy Leo season, everybody. I do want to say on the basis of fate and free will that three of the major philosophical platforms that we have to work on were all founded in astrologically informed cultures.
Yes.
Hinduism, Buddhism, and Stoicism. There's a clear consistency between those three types of thoughts.
We've been talking about the threads,
and they were all being astrologically informed when they were being founded.
Yes,
so they were literally wrestling with the fate and free will of astrology while they were founding these concepts.
Where did any of these concepts come from us trying to explain our experience? Where does us explaining our experience come from? But phenomenon and observation.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
That's all we got. We got phenomenon and observation. May the fire inside guide you.
May the fire inside guide you.
Shaka.
Peace out.